Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or depending on where you are in the world, good night. It's 11 o'clock, it's minus 14 degrees, and I'm under a high pressure system, which means the air is completely still. And as you can see from the sky, there isn't a single cloud to be seen. So this makes it great for vlogging, and the reason I'm out here vlogging is not because I really like the super cold. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of it, but I have some kit here that I want to test out. I have the Canon EOS 10 to 18 millimeter f4.5-5.6 image stabilized lens. It's mounted on the Canon EOS R5, which is itself mounted on the Crane 2S. And the reason why I have the Crane 2S is I want to provide the smoothest possible video that I can. And I do apologize, because it's so cold, I'm going to mumble my words, I'm going to trip over them because my mouth is already starting to freeze. But the main reason for doing this video is I want to see what 16 millimeters looks like on the R5, because I'm looking at getting a 16 millimeter prime once they're available. Right now, I don't think there is one. I think Samyang has a 14 millimeter. So I'm really interested in getting an RF. And I know what you're thinking. Simon, if this lens works well for you, why not go with this lens? Well, there's several caveats for that. Number one, 4K 120 is disabled. So when this lens, this EOS lens, is mounted on this camera body, it's in cropped mode. It's forced in crop mode. I lose 4K 120. I can't shoot 8K. And those are some of the capabilities I like shooting. I love shooting in 4K HQ. And certainly in this temperature, minus 14, and this is what I'm dealing with out here. Look at my scenery. It's quite beautiful out here. I can't shoot in 4K HQ, and I really, really like that. But the whole purpose of this is my thought process. I'm looking at getting a 16 millimeter. I was able to pick up this lens used for $125. That's pretty cheap. Now, the going market rate for it is about $150. So if I don't like it, I can turn around and sell it and get my money back. So there's that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take you through different settings, different lighting conditions. Now, right out here, I've got the sun blaring down on me. I'm shooting at f16. Shutter's at 1/60th of a second, and the ISO's floating. But as we get into some of the more, how shall we say, shaded areas, deep into the forest, I think we're going to start to see some noise with this lens, and I think that's why it's not going to work out for me. Some other reasons why it's probably not going to work out for me, and why I do want to go with an RF 16 millimeter, is because I really don't have much in terms of a depth of field. Well, I don't have much in terms of a shallow depth of field. If anything, I have a huge depth of field. Everything's in focus. So let's go ahead, let's go over to the forest and see how well it looks in the forest. Let's see how much noise we get. This is one of the darkest parts of the forest right here. Now, you do see behind me, it's illuminated quite well, but I've got this thing wide open at 4.5, but given the crop factor, that makes it more like 7.5. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be quite a bit of noise here. I might not even be exposed properly, although if my face does look pretty red, that's because it's very cold out here. Oh, it is beautiful though. I really love it here. So in a minute, I'm going to take a turn into another part of the forest where there is a little bit more lighting, and it should look a little bit better. But I do expect we'll start to see some noise here, because when I did some test shots over the last couple of weeks, that's exactly what I saw here. Again, you can't blame a duck for quacking. I just missed my turn, so let's go back here a little bit further. And is it here? No. Oh, we're almost, no, I think it's right here. Ah, here, no, it's the next one over. You think you know where you are, and you don't. Now, I gotta say one thing about using the Crane here. Well, sorry, it's more about using this lens with the Crane. I have my elbows right at my side, and that's one thing I like about this lens at 16 millimeters, is you don't have to stick. See, this is fully extended. Sorry, let's do that. It's fully extended. And this is me holding or keeping my elbows right at my side. It makes it a whole lot easier to hold, even with a gimbal, and the weight is a whole lot better. And of course, the lens is absolutely lightweight. It feels like there's nothing inside this thing. It's about 200 grams, which is just less than half a pound, so it's pretty amazing. I put the RF 50mm on here and just tried. I had to stick my arms all the way out. Squirrels are throwing things on me. They don't like me in their neighborhood. It's a bad part of town. The squirrels around here, they're pretty nasty. And I keep looking at the LCD, don't I? Anyhow, the snow keeps dropping on me. The autofocus won't be a problem. Now I can tell by looking at the screen, it's got an eye lock on me. But yesterday when I was filming, oh, it was terrible. The snow was just throwing the autofocus completely off. And I don't know if it was the snow, combination of the snow, or the fact that it was so cold. But here with the f-stop, it shouldn't be a problem. So here we are. This is much better lit, even though it seems pretty dark to me. There's an awful lot of sunlight coming through the trees, which should make this quite usable footage. It won't be as noisy as it was when I was out here last week. It was completely cloudy. But I really do love 16mm. I love how wide open it is. And I love how light it is. And one of the reasons for going for a prime instead of, let's say, if they came out with a 14 to 18 or 14 to 20 or anything like that, it adds more weight. And you don't want a lot of weight here. I don't want to get an L series that's going to weigh, 1.5 pounds at most. I don't want more than about 400 grams. Now I'm walking back in the other direction, and you're going to see a little bit more sunlight directly on me because the sun is, I wouldn't say directly over above. So what time is it right now? Yep, it is 11 o'clock, so it's almost 12 o'clock. The sun is straight ahead, but it's not directly overhead. It's more like at a 45-degree angle. That's how far north I am. Yes, I'm in northern Canada. I'm in the deep woods, close to the Arctic Circle, worried about bears, wolves, and ferocious squirrels. Okay, I'm not that far north, but all those animals are present around here. We get bears, black bears, we get deer, we get ill-tempered squirrels, but thank God there's no honey badgers. See how I panned that for dramatic effect? I'm not trying to be too serious here today. I'm just trying to have fun. I've been doing an awful lot of videos over the last couple of weeks, doing a lot of research. And being out here, this is more for me to get my exercise and have a little bit of fun, and for you to get to see what it's like using the EFS 10 to 18mm on an R system camera. And I think it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. But like I said, there's some pretty big downsides to this. I don't get to shoot 4K 120. That super slow motion is gone as an option. I also don't get to shoot 4K 4K HQ. And that's kind of a big deal. Regular 4K is a little bit soft, as you can see here, but 4K 120, the detail's incredible, because keep in mind, you're getting full 8K downsampled in camera to 4K. And that is pretty impressive. But if you got the EOS R, you got the R6, and you're interested in vlogging, what do you think? What do you think of the framing of 16mm? I think it's pretty good. I think 14mm, there's a Samyang 14mm, I think it's an f2 or 2.8, and I think it might just be a little bit too wide, because what starts to happen after a while is you start to warp things around your face and everything, and you start to suffer from chromatic aberration, which you will see here. If you look to the edges, you'll see some chromatic aberration. It's definitely there, and it's not going to be as sharp. Well, this should be interesting. See how this looks on film. I'm walking through. Do you see that? A little snow shower. That's just the snow coming off the trees. That's beautiful out here. I don't know why people stay stuck in their house. So where I live in Canada, there's quite a lot of people around me, despite what you would see in the framing, and that's part of the art of filmmaking too. I'm going to spoil it for some of you. I'm actually about 25 minutes from downtown Toronto, or from Toronto. It's a huge city. But how you frame things, how you make it look, can create a completely different feel. And that's what I like about filmmaking. So whenever you see me out in these trails, I'm always going to frame it so there's no houses, there's no sign of any man-made structures whatsoever. I want to escape, and I want to have you escape with me. But A lot of people in this area, they hate winter. They don't live in winter. They don't experience winter. They go from their heated house where they keep temperatures up to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, go to their heated car, which they start remotely, drive to their other place they're going to, whether it be work or shops or anything, and guess what? It's heated too. Sometimes they even have underground parking, which to me, you're not experiencing winter. So when I walk to work or take the bus to work, they say, "Oh my God, you must be cold all the time." I said, "No, I'm not cold. I've got the right boots for it, got the right coat for it, I've got the right gloves for it," right? And I think that's part of it, is you know, to prepare for winter, all you need is this, they call it, it's a jacket. It goes over top of your clothes. And you have what on top, some people call a hat. This is actually called a toque. And on my feet, let's see, I'm in go mode, so let's see if I can swing this around. To see how good I am with the crane. I'm going to swing it around to show you my boots. All the way down, you can see those boots there. So those are good for -40. I can step in slush and all sorts of wonderful stuff like that. And it's, yeah, I have to tap it 3 times, but my fingers, even though they've been exposed to the cold for what, you know, no more than 30 seconds or so, they're already starting to freeze up. All right, let's put my mitts back in. So, yeah, I'm showing you a different lighting situation. Now, I do have the zebras on right now, and this really helps me see how things are exposing. So I can tell that a good part of my face is at least 70 IRE. Not all of it, but right now, yes, most of it's 70 IRE. The only problem with zebras, especially if you're moving like this, yes, I hit 70 IRE, but I have no idea if I hit 80, 90, 100, or if I've blown out the highlights. And that's why, when I was talking about exposure in my video today, false colors is so much better, because you get to see, right now I could see the different colors of my face, and I could tell what levels of exposure I have. And then of course waveforms and vector scopes are even better than that, but that's a whole nother story. I won't get into exposure again. I don't want to beat that to death, but if you do have a question about exposure, go ahead and put it in the comment section down below. Now, I haven't done a lot of vlogging, and one of the things I'm noticing as a problem already is I keep looking at the LCD, which is right there, right beside my camera, and I should turn it off. But, you know, like I said, this is not what I aimed as to being a professional shoot here today. I'm just playing around, I'm having fun, and I'm really curious to see how the zebras, because I've just started using zebras because I've just started shooting outside again. And for these long shoots, especially when I'm moving around, there we go, one side of my face is really nicely lit up. I want to see how things look. My f-stop, yeah, f4.5, so I've probably blown out a little bit here, because I've got the exposure, I've got the f-stop, and everything set for being in a relatively shaded, low light area. Now, before I close things off here, I want to take you out to show you one of my duck blinds here. They've got 2 of them in the town, and when spring opened up, this is going to be perfect for shooting all sorts of wildlife with the 800mm, with the 2x extender or not. So let's turn this around here. Now you can see houses off in the distance there. Normally I'll try to just completely frame it so those aren't seen. And then of course on the other side, that's where I got the beavers. You can't see it from here, but it's much further down, about 1 kilometer or a mile that way. And that's where I shot the beavers. All right, so let's flip the... All right, so I'm at f22. I love the framing of this lens. I know from this little experiment that as soon as an RF prime 16mm comes out, I'm going to get it. I'd really like it to be around f2.8 at the very minimum. F2 would be nice, but I think f2.8 would be perfect for almost all situations. Who knows what that'll cost though, but being a prime, shouldn't see it over $2,000. I expect to be around $1,000 to $1,500. Hopefully a little cheaper. And with that kind of lens, I'm going to be shooting a lot more vlogging, because it gets me outside, gets me exercising, and it gets me enjoying this beautiful wilderness that we have here. So to quickly summarize, 60mm frames up really nicely. The entire time I was out here shooting with a 10 to 18mm, I had it locked off at 10mm. Now they don't actually give you a lock on this lens, so I just put some electrical tape over it so I wouldn't accidentally move it. So I've been stuck at 10mm, which on the R5, due to the crop factor of 1.6, that gives me a framing similar to what you would get with a 16mm. So I really like the frame of this, and I've just put this down on a railing right here, and I'm standing, I would say, from the lens, 18 inches away. And it's beautifully nice and wide. I really like this. And of course, using the crane, and I could use my hands too, but I literally had myself locked like this. This is how I had it most of the time. And it's just amazing. I don't feel tired. I've got the bones of support all lined up properly. My back doesn't feel it. I've shot several times with this lens, and each time I had a problem with the footage or I forgot a setting. And I hope I'm recording audio. Let me just check. Am I recording audio? That would just... I am. I'm recording audio. Of course, you knew that already, right? But I just had a nasty feeling that, oh my God, I forgot to record the audio, and I'm shooting off the camera, which wouldn't be a complete loss because the air is completely still. And just listen for a minute. Do you hear anything? You should hear silence. I do hear some birds, though. Look, I really love this. I want to tell you a little story. When I first got my camera, like a DSLR, it was the Canon 50D. And I used it as an excuse to travel. Now, right around the same time, I also got a Corvette. It was I can't remember what year it was. But I got a Corvette, or maybe, no, I got the camera before the Corvette. Yeah, I got the camera before the Corvette. And the Corvette and the camera were basically like twins. So it was a beautiful day like this in August. I said, okay, let's go to Portland, Maine. So I would usually leave at night, drive through the night, so there wasn't any traffic. It was just absolutely beautiful. And then right around 5 o'clock in the morning, almost 5 o'clock, the twilight would start up and the sun would be up pretty quickly. And this was amazing. This was, like I said, beginning of August, and I was watching the temperature on the car, and it said, I looked down, it said 4 degrees Celsius. I'm like, this is not good. I'm going through mountainous areas in a sports car with sporty tires. And I keep watching, it goes 3, 2, 1, 0. And I'm freaking out here because, I don't want to plant this car into the side of a rock or off into a ravine. We're talking about the Appalachian Mountains here. This is not a place for a sports car to go off the beaten track. Thankfully, I was okay, but I still had my doubts as to whether it was actually that cold. But as soon as I got out of the car in my shorts and my t-shirt, I was freezing. It was absolutely cold. But by the time 10 o'clock rolled around, it was like 75, 80 degrees. It was just unbelievably astonishing. But the camera is what got me out. It got me exploring. And this camera and the camera before it does the same thing. And I want to get lenses like the 16mm or f16mm. Whoever makes a good, decent one, doesn't have to be the best quality. I want to use it for vlogging. And here's the thing too. Vlogging isn't just for us YouTubers. It's for families. You're doing video selfies. You hold it out in front of you like I'm grabbing onto it right now. So I'm fully extended. My arm's fully extended. And I can easily have my family around me. You can do family vlogging shots. That's the power of this type of lens. And actually, I just bumped it a little. I don't want this to go falling off into the bog. There we go. And I think for a lot of us, if you love nature, doesn't matter what the weather's like, get outside. I know a lot of places are in lockdown. We're in lockdown too, but one of the things we are definitely allowed to do is to get outside and exercise and go in the trails. We keep our distance, but don't stay inside. Get outside and enjoy it. Just suck. What was it? Thoreau or Emerson that said, suck the marrow out of life, something like that. But this is just a terrific, terrific lens. But now, let's go a little bit behind the scenes. So this episode of Behind the Scenes, I want to talk to you about two things. The first thing is the Sony a7S III. I really want to get this lens. January was a little bit better than I expected. I'm up to about, I think, $750 for the month, and I'll probably close off somewhere just shy of $800. And that has me start thinking about my next purchases. I really do want to get the a7S III. I think for filmmaking, it's a terrific camera. I just love some of the things that it's capable of. For example, you don't have that 30-minute record limit, and that 30-minute record limit as a YouTube operator is becoming really, really frustrating. For a normal person, for ordinary filmmaker going about shooting, capturing life, that 30-minute is really not going to be an issue for you. I think there's a couple of situations you might want to record more than 30 minutes, but starting and stopping isn't going to be a problem for you, especially if you're the one behind the camera. The other thing is I'm fighting exposure a little bit, and I'm not talking about this lens, but on the RF lenses where I have complete control over how I want to choose the lighting. But another thing that the A7S III helps address one of the things that's been bugging me a lot, and that is exposure. And again, when you're behind the R5, you're shooting all these things you can manage and compensate quite easily. But when you're a one-person shooting setup, you've got a YouTube channel like I do, and I know we're not a majority of the people out there, but I'm talking about for me, and what would be a huge benefit to me is being able to have the exposure compensate for what the autofocus is set to. So on the A7S III, when you set your autofocus point, you can actually set the exposure to expose based on what it's locked on. And that is just incredible. No more having to fiddle around with it, because I spend a lot of time before I press that record button, making sure everything is set up, checking the zebras, checking everything, just to make sure everything is lined up properly. And I just wish the R5 had that. It's something they could provide in a firmware update. I'm really looking forward to seeing what firmware they come out with this coming month, February, which this video will be live before February, but February's Monday, and I'm really curious to see. We're supposed to get a firmware update for the R5 with C-Log 3, Cinema Raw Light, a bunch of bug fixes and some other things, and I would really like to see them remove the 30-minute record limit and also provide us better exposure in video. In video, you don't have any control over the exposure. It's on evaluative, and that doesn't work a lot of times. I don't care if I blow out the background a little bit. I don't care if I blow out the snow here. Focus on me. I'm the subject here, and I can't really force the lens to do that, and that's a little bit frustrating. So that's also one thing that's one of the reasons why I'm looking at getting the A7S III. And of course, when the summer months do roll on and it gets really hot, I don't even have to worry about overheating, so it solves an awful lot of problems. But that's it for now. Don't forget to subscribe for your chance to win 2 Angelbird 128GB AV Pro MK2 V90 UHS-2 SD cards, along with a dual SD card reader. And the second prize is the Ulanzi LED light package with accent lights, underwater lights, and various flat panel lights. I'll be awarding these 2 prizes to 2 separate winners once this channel reaches 30,000 subscribers. And then I'll be awarding a different prize every 10,000 subscribers up to 100,000, at which point I'll be awarding a brand new Canon EOS R5 full-frame mirrorless camera to one lucky viewer. And on that bombshell, thanks so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. We'll see you again soon.